So we have this preach video right here that I wanna watch because it is called "Why Aren't You Enjoying the World Within?" And I am enjoying the world within. There are aspects that I think can be improved, of course. And I've been vocal about how I think this Mythic Plus specifically season is the worst one since I've been playing, which is since Shadowlands. But being the worst Mythic Plus season doesn't necessarily mean that it sucks or it is really bad. It is just that it is the worst out of the bunch, right? I still have fun when I play, but there are a lot of stuff that can be improved. But I want to watch this video to see what he says, basically. So let's just do it, brother.
Season 1 is in the books. The World Soul Saga is... Season 1 is in the books. The World Soul Saga is underway and Metzen asked you to come home. So how is it looking? Rating's done. Mythic Plus is done. We've explored the delves.
Nice find!
Ansurek lies dead at our feet. And now we're getting ready for the next content. Well, let's give our full, honest review of how this season went. Let's start with the lore.
But he says when like the season is over. The season is not over, but we have been playing it enough to now we know how things are going, right? And it probably, if it changes, it probably won't change much, right?
Already mired in controversy with the paid bonus early access. I want to be clear, when it comes to MMOs, I'm fine with pre-orders giving you early access because those are the guys who want to dive in straight away. They don't want the FOMO. They're going to book time off work. And there's nothing worse in a game that is actively pushing character progress to see everybody else progressing and you can't because you can't shell out the extra dollars in order to join in and have fun. Now, Blizzard's obviously looking, as I asked Ian directly at BlizzCon immediately after this was announced, what the point of this thing was, because we'd never had it before, is that he kind of looked a little down about it. And he was like, they need something. It's a bean counter decision. They need something to incentivize people paying more money. It's kind of how he looked at it. And it's often the case, even with the game director.
I am fine with that because for me, for example, at least WoW has a way of you buying the expansions without paying money, which is paying it with gold, converting the gold to Blizzard balance, to Battle.net balance, and you can buy the expansion. So I don't really spend money on this. I just spend gold. And the other thing is that if they release a good product, I don't think people are mad about having to pay for an expansion per se. It's just that they feel like it is too expensive. Like, you are making me paying $50 for a product that I feel costs $20 or $25 or $30. So I believe that is mainly the problem that people have with releasing multiple expansions fast. Like, you are making me pay in the same amount that I have paid for every expansion, but now this expansion has less content than they had before because they are faster, right? So that is what the problem people have with this thing. Not necessarily that there are more expansions. I think people love there being more expansions. What people dislike is the price point for the amount of content. And not only people, I feel that way too.
I feel, I don't know this for sure, this was a dictated rule from the money counters, and personally I think it was a massive balls up. A huge balls up that starts this World Soul Saga. Everybody come back, everybody have fun, and look at it through the window from the outside unless you can afford to spend more money. And then obviously the FOMO kicks in and people are like, I'm just going to end up buying this. I don't want it. I don't want the other rewards, but I'm going to buy it because my favorite game is happening right now in front of my eyes, and I literally can't play, and I'm seeing everybody else play it, and it sucks. And my friends are leveling, and they're having fun, and then...
And that is true, brother. One of the ways they get away with selling a bunch of expansions, and that just happened with Diablo 4 too. It's like, it is the FOMO. It is the FOMO. It is like everybody's playing right now. This is the best moment to enjoy the expansion. I have to play it right now. I know that for a lot of people this is not a problem. They have the self-control to say, you know what, I am going to wait for it to be cheaper or whatever. But this is not the majority of the people, bro. The majority of the people cave in. And I think I am one of those people. I am not afraid to admit that I cave to the hype. I want to play when everybody else is playing. I like it. I like being on the server the day the expansion launches and being everybody enjoying the game. I don't know, that's another layer of enjoyment for me, and it seems stupid even to me. I think, why would this give me more enjoyment? Why would it be better for me if there are a lot of people there? Who cares? But it does. It just does. I don't know why. Maybe a psychologist can give me the answer to this bullshit. So yes, a lot of people just buy the expansion just to be there, because it is, you feel like you are missing out if you aren't there.
Now I'm going to jump in. They're already going to be leveled. Blah, 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 blah. Terrible idea. I have no doubt, though, this is like pessimistic me, is that there's probably made so much cash they're going to do it again. I just hope that they take a more responsible approach towards their community and just put it into pre-orders, because pre-orders I'm fine with. Other games do that all the time for MMOs, and it does in some way divide up the player base so the servers are left.
Yeah, pre-orders are fine at this point. Everybody, yeah, it is like used to pre-orders. They shouldn't be fine, because pre-orders are as something archaic that was done before, because you used to have physical copies, right? So people needed to pre-order the physical copies to be sure that they were going to have their copy, and they didn't get late to the shop or something like that, and they are sold out on copies, basically. But now that this is digital and you have basically infinite copies, pre-orders are not necessary. This is an archaic system that they are using just to secure sales. This is not for the consumer, but for themselves. They want to secure sales with time to see how things are going, and blah blah blah, and then they give you rewards for the pre-order. That is basically what you are buying when you pre-order, the supposed rewards with the pre-order. But this is again an archaic system. But we gamers have grown used to pre-orders because that is the norm, so people are already not getting that much. But when you get a problem is with the early access, with the 4 days early access. Like for single player games, again, this is also not a problem. You play the game solo, who cares, 4 days, whatever. But now for WoW, in the world within, we had early access, and we saw an impact in terms of, for example, where I think the impact was bigger, because at the point we are right now in the season, it doesn't matter the early access for gear or for gear or for progression for your character, but for your professions and gold making, the early access was definitely important. I bought the early access, and I managed to make a lot of gold in those days, because everybody was leveling the professions and farming or whatever, and it was easy to make a lot of gold. So in a game like this, I don't think they should do early access again for WoW, and I feel they will probably do it. And the hype was less hype. What we were talking earlier about, the hype of everybody being there, it was less hype because you divided the community, so everybody wasn't there. So the first day of early access, you had a percentage of the population, and on the real release you had another percentage. So not everybody was together at release, and this also diminished hype. I don't know, I don't like it.
Destroyed. My personal feeling is people would prefer to have a few hours of a laggy mess, but still all get to play together, although it might be frustrating, but continue the next day totally fine, as is historically true with most World of Warcraft launches. It also didn't help, of course, is that immediately once the game was widespread available, is that they then nerfed the leveling. Even if they did any change from what people had in early access to what happened when it went live, quote unquote, it would have been a disaster. But to see people, especially the top streamers from the top guilds, whether you're following Liquid, Method, or Echo, or whoever you're following, leveling 18 characters really quickly in the early access, and then when it goes to retail, they nerf that process, and you're like, dude, what the hell? So like it was premium rich access or whatever, right? It's total garbage. Hated every second of it. I don't think it should be done in the future.
We interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast to talk about Displate. You get me today because Mike forgot to record this before he left for Florida. Displate has thousands of amazing designs from your favorite TV shows, movies, and games. They're super easy to put up and take down.
What is happening
here? Around. Whether it's from games like WoW, Final Fantasy XIV, or Warhammer 40k, you can find anything you want on the website, and I would suggest you give it a look. Check out the link down below or use code PREACH at checkout for up to 27% off anything on the website.
What is happening
okay,
here.
But the launch overall for both sides went smoothly. Coming down to a gameplay point of view, it was crispy smooth, really nice. Now, what about the leveling process? Far too easy. Blizzard ended up nerfing this shortly after and trying to make the scaling a little better.
You guys know, I have said this before, I really don't care about leveling. I think leveling is boring. So when leveling, it is not necessarily easy. Being too easy is also stupid because you feel like a bot, like a brain dead idiot. But it being long is annoying to me. I want it to be fast. I don't want to level. I want to get to the end game. That is what I enjoy about WoW, the end game. I want to play Mythic Plus, play Raiding, play PvP, whatever. So leveling is boring to me. I want to get done with it. But it is true that they could for sure make leveling more engaging because... but I think that is not the purpose of WoW. So I don't know if they should be spending much time in developing that. Because you are bound to finish leveling and focus on endgame. So why waste resources on that bullshit? I think people are like stuck in the past when WoW was focused on leveling. That is not WoW anymore. That is WoW Classic, and people that enjoy leveling can play WoW Classic. I like WoW Classic, but again, not because of the leveling, but because of the endgame, and I hate leveling there too.
All right.
By the way, I know that is not a popular opinion for everybody. There are a lot of people that enjoy leveling, and I support them. That is what you enjoy. I am just saying what I personally enjoy.
Right, we talked about this earlier, but the leveling process in MMOs is supposed to be brain dead easy. I get it. I do. I understand it. It's supposed to be for literally everybody, including somebody who's picked up the game, somebody who's using like a third of their abilities total, and certainly not doing any sort of optimal rotation. Any seasoned player in an MMO is not going to be looking for a difficult leveling experience in the MMO space. Your difficulty is supposed to come later. It's normal. But generally speaking, the open world was really good. Particular shoutouts to Hallowfall, which was by far my favorite zone. And considering my review in the alpha, I actually much prefer Jazzarus this time. I thought this was a much better play, and the Ringing Deeps was substantially better than the first time I played it on the alpha once it had been.
That is the ranking for the zones for me. Like Hallowfall is the best, then I like Ashkahead, and the last two are basically interchangeable. I Love Dawn is cool, and the Ringing Deeps has the problems. Like maybe the Ringing Deeps is my least favorite one, but the I Love Dawn is like really basic. So, but Hallowfall is the first one for sure, and I believe it is for everybody. And for me, Ashkahead is the second one.
Played out. I will say the story is a massive step up. Let's talk about the story for a second. It is a huge step up. It's certainly not the pinnacle of MMO storytelling. That title is still...
I was going to say that because he said it's a step up, but I said the story is not that good. But then he says it is not the best, but yes, it is a step up if you compare it to Dragonflight that sucked, right? The Dragonflight, the story sucked big. So the World Within one is better for sure. The World Within one started great. Like I love the Khadgar and Salatad stuff. It was awesome. But when you are actually in the Ashkahead story line is also cool. Like everything with the Queen and the infiltration with the Nerubians, that is cool. But the other things is boring in my opinion. For the World Within, but it is better than Dragonflight. So it started good, but after that it went downhill quickly.
Firmly held by Final Fantasy XIV in the Hydaelyn Zodiac era. It is phenomenal. It's not there, but it's better. They did some really good ideas to try and engage people in the story who are traditionally not going to engage with the story. I particularly want to give a shout out here to adding lots more voiceovers after you accept the quest. So if you're a skipper and you're just accept, a lot of the NPCs will actually follow along telling you what the hell is going on. Like at that point, only people playing with literally zero audio and not looking at anything on the screen because the chat bubble's popping up are not going to have some general understanding of what is happening. I really enjoyed so much of the story. I know people didn't like it, but I liked Anduin's story. They took the horrendous mess that is Shadowlands and tried to take it seriously. And they also reset a lot of the characters who have been turn into memes. You know, Bram Bronzebeard would be a great example of that. We had a ridiculous moment in an Ulduar Time Walking recently. Is every time someone turns a quest in, the voice line resets and plays over again, turning Bran into a meme. And he had become a meme over the years.
This is what we
What is that one? I didn't really... That was possible.
Here it is again. Norganon's key. This is
Trying to reset that character and physically change that character. I'm still not going to go into spoilers here, but if you've played it, you've played it. To physically change that character, to give him a fresh start. The same with Khadgar. These forgotten characters that just walk in, disappear, and wander out. Now they're here, and now they're going to do something with them and have their presence be felt, because they should be. One of the big issues that World of Warcraft has had over the years is very powerful, very major characters in their storylines just not being present when they should be, because they would absolutely be helpful here, and they should be helping with the situation.
And that is why they aren't there, precisely. They are using that as a device that if this character was here, he would solve everything, and we don't want to solve everything. We want the problem to continue, so the story continues.
Jazzarus faces, existential crisis or whatever, and suddenly Khadgar's just not here for some reason, or Jaina's not here, and Thrall's just not here. It's like they would absolutely be here. They seem to be resolving that. On the story note, though, yes, I very much enjoyed the main campaign. However, I really feel it's time to drop the time gating of the story. I don't think it serves a purpose anymore, and in fact causes more angst and frustration than is necessary. I really do think that once Metzen fully takes control, as Metzen had an interview just before the World Saga came out, saying that his influence is not really going to be felt until later on, because a lot of what the War Within was actually done when he came back. So he has rejiggled some of the start, but his real influence is going to be felt towards the end of the World Soul Saga and in the middle and early stages. So we'll probably see that sort of mid to late. The War Within is where Metzen really jumps in and see what he's doing with it and where this story's going. But you could tell from the alpha to the release of the War Within is that they did go back and, with a fine-tooth comb, remove things that would have been a little weird. So a good example of this would have been the initial hatred in Hallowfall towards anybody who has touched the Void. That it was mainly targeted at Illyria. It's like, we don't trust anybody who's with the Void because our crystal turns dark, and that's really bad. So we don't like anybody with the Void. However, they went back and realized, hey, there are Void-born characters here. Right? We've got Shadow Priests. This is going to be really weird if they're all, like, pointing fingers at Illyria, and you're stood there with your purple glow going, I mean, this is a little odd. So they went back and tied up a lot of loose ends, which is, I never found a logical fallacy in the story so far, and felt that they did really well. A lot of good connecting moments. Playing chess with Anduin was really good. All that stuff played well, but the time getting of the story literally turned off members of my team from playing any more of the War Within, because they just came back. The story happens in this like reasonable hour and a half period, and then it cuts off at some cliffhanger for another week for some reason, despite the fact that it shouldn't, because we've already paid the month. You're not getting more time out of us for doing this. You're just time gating it because it's been done. And that's where I would point out here how Ian very regularly has pointed out is like, we need to start letting go of the antiquated ideas of what MMOs were in the early 2000s and the rules that were set by our forefathers. It's something Ian talks about a lot, is when he joined the team actively as his role in Mists of Pandaria, is he came into a lot of pre-established rules. This is how we do things. This is how it is done. And now we're in the 2020s. Like, these rules just no longer apply. The gaming sphere as a
I agree with this perspective, by the way, and not only to WoW, to almost everything. Why I don't like when you have an argument for something. For example, I believe this is a fallacy, but I don't know if it is the name of the fallacy. But when you point out something that, in your opinion, isn't right, and people say, oh, it always has been like this. Fuck that. It doesn't matter if it always has been like this. If it isn't right, if it isn't right. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine like you are in, I don't know, in Egypt 2K years before Christ, right? And they have been having slaves for 3K years. And you say, hey, this slavery bullshit sucks. and they say to you, oh, it has always been like this. I don't give a fuck if it has always been like this. It sucks dick, brother. It is bad. So I don't like that argument. So in this case, I support this attitude that you come to the development team and you say, you know what? We are going to improve things. We are going to change things. We are going to the new era. And I agree with that perspective. Now, have they done the best possible thing? We know that there are things that could be improved in the game. We know it. But I think that they have made enough to the point that we differentiate retail from classic, right? They are basically two different games. They are two different games, cater to two different groups of people, so they have definitely changed the game. If for the better, it is subjective. If you like more classic or you like more retail, I don't know. I like more retail. But I also, again, have a lot of things that I think could be improved greatly and that they are obviously flawed and they keep with it and they keep doing it, they keep doing it, and it is why, brother? Why? Like the depletion of the key. We all know there is not one person in the world that enjoys the depletion of the key. There are maybe 2 psychopaths out there that enjoy it, but outside of them, nobody enjoys it and they keep doing it. So, yes, there are stuff that we can criticize, but I think that in the greater scheme of things, the changes, the direction, I don't know, that they have taken the game, I enjoy it personally. But of course, it is also directed by the thing that this is the version of the game I know. Maybe they could have taken it in another direction that could have been better than this. And I am just biased because this is the version that I know. But this is just going into a rabbit hole of philosophicals and hypotheticals that we will never know, right?
The whole is so different. You've got games like I'm wearing here, like Path of Exile, etc., that are just sat there for free, that are offering hundreds of hours of content, and you need to be able to catch up with that. Final Fantasy XIV, once again, is offering like most of its game entirely for free until you get to the late stage. It's several hundred hours. We need to drop away these antiquated hard and fast rules when World of Warcraft was the king supreme on its throne and start doing away with it. And one of them I think they should absolutely get away with is the time gating story. It needs to be done in a better way. It leads to people forgetting the details that have just happened, and then they go and do a load of Mythic Plus or...
The way they... And one of the things why this time gating doesn't make sense, at least for me it didn't make sense, is that you finish the Ashkahed storyline like nothing happened. Like, oh yes, we are in this state or whatever. And then the raid is released and you go and you do the raid, and you go into the palace and you do the thing, and it is like it is disconnected. But why it was disconnected? Because the linking thing, the linking quest was time gated, and you did the linking thing after you already did the raid, so it didn't make any sense, right? It was like releasing chapter 1, then releasing chapter 3, and then releasing chapter 2. It was really weird, and I didn't like that. Like when I first did the raid, like there was no connection between the campaign and doing the raid. While in Dragonflight, it did. I didn't play season 2, but in season 1 and in season 3, the storyline led you to the raid, and it made sense. In the World Within, it didn't happen.
Open world content, and then they come back and it's like, oh, now we're catching up with the story. There are certain things that I'm fine with time gating, such as finding the relic memories to go down and figure out, oh, this is the history of what's going on here. Those are cool, something to look forward to. But in terms of the main story and the Horde and the Alliance arriving, that should be part of the continuing story of when you play. I'm not expecting a 40-hour story campaign from World of Warcraft, but if you want us to be caring and interested in the story, stop time gating it. It's very, very frustrating. So those are the basic things. Let's talk about the endgame in Renown. I really liked that the focus wasn't on capping your character. In fact, or completing all the zones. It was just doing the story, and then the endgame opened up regardless of what level you were, and you could get going. Very little was actually tied behind being level capped. That was a great idea, because it allowed people to start working on other things. I liked that they had the access to the epic rewards, the early gearing process from Renown, basically just by playing the game normally while leveling. I had access to all of that stuff just naturally by playing the game.
That is good.
And then if you want the fancy rewards,
I believe they are the reputations in this the world within are, but they have several iterations, so they are like they have more practice with this shit, right? But I believe that the reputations from the things that I have played, which was Shadowlands reputations with the Covenants, and then the Dragonflight ones that were better than the Shadowlands ones. The World Within is better than Dragonflight in terms of reputation. I think this is the best reputations that I have played in WoW so far. Are they perfect? Probably not, but they are the best version yet.
want the extra things. That's the stuff you're going to be doing later on, and that's stuff that's not super relevant to your character in terms of power progress or anything along those lines. That was super nice. I really enjoyed it. I do like the Archcahet stuff. But one thing, and I do not like the events in the top zone with the theater performance. Once again, and this is going to be a continuing thing throughout this, World of Warcraft suffers so heavily, and we're going to come back to this in raiding with many players on the screen, and it definitely needs to be fixed. Whether this is the World Soul Saga is leading to a revamp of the engine at the end, or WoW 2, something along those lines needs to happen, because as days and years pass, it's just getting worse. You get more than 20 people in a room, it's a nightmare, the whole thing falls apart, and the game is practically unplayable, and that's not something you want. The product is not fit for purpose for what they're trying.
I have only felt that in the city, in Dornogar, but in the raid, it doesn't happen to me. But when I am raiding in POX, moreover, I always hear people complaining about the FPS and how their stuff is lagging and stuttering or whatever. So this is a problem for enough people that it should be addressed, right?
One thing I do point out here, and I think is something that doesn't fit into a particular section, is that World of Warcraft still does not offer a reasonable player challenge outside of the Raid and Mythic Plus sphere and PvP. And I think that's a real
That is
shame.
true.
There are, while I understand the leveling process
that?
is, of course, accessible for everyone, there should be more things that are a really good challenge, which probably leaves us to Delves, right? Delves are fine. They need iteration. Right now, they're kind of purposeless once you pass a certain gear level, which is very easily obtainable. There's not much point in going past 8 at all. I think that's okay, though. For a first go at what Delves are and finding out how players treat them, how players are interacting with them, there are lots of players doing Delves every day and using it as their primary gearing source, unlocking their vaults, whatever it might be. Now Blizzard needs to figure out a way of making these a more interesting temptation to actually push and do something with.
This is completely true. I like Delves the first week. They were fun, they were a new thing. You can get your character through there. It is something that you haven't tried before. But after you have done them, they get boring. They get boring. I wouldn't mind doing them over and over again if they were just the last boss. I like doing the boss at the end of the delve. But running the actual delve, it gets boring. I don't want to do this thing like 8 prisoners, pick up 5 things. I don't want to do this shit. Let me just fight the end dude and be done with it. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Like Segbir, I love Segbir. When you could farm Segbir 5 times, 8 times to fill your vault, I loved it. I loved it. I didn't think it was boring fighting Segbir because the fight is fun, is cool fighting a boss. But the normal delves suck dick in my opinion. And now that you, at this point of the season, when you are out getting the delves, like delves give nothing to you, now you have no incentive to go over there. You already did them, you know what they are about, and on top of that, they don't give you rewards that you crave. So what do? You don't go there anymore. That is what is happening to delves, so they have to improve them for Season 2. For sure, they have to improve them for Season 2 and for the future. I hope they realize, at least for me, I like just fighting the end of dungeon boss, so they put more emphasis on those things than on just doing menial tasks while you are getting there.
With them, because then we will have access to that challenge I was talking about earlier. Level 8s are relatively simplistic. going past that can get harder, but there's also not much point in doing it. And you're kind of just hoping for maps if you're looking for actually acquiring gear, which are a pretty low drop rate. And as we've seen, certainly over the last couple of weeks, they are nerfing the ways people are finding, very similar to Maw of Souls in Legion, of being efficient with them. So we saw with Zekvia, the easier version of Zekvia is people could spam that. It's not hard to do, and they could do it very, very quickly because there's no trash, there's no story. It's just straight into a room with a boss. People are spamming that to fill their vaults or to get Valor Stones.
Not pre-watch, by the way. This is the first time I watch this, but this is the logical thing you think.
Or whatever it might be. And then they nerfed it again because people are still utilizing it for the things they don't want them to do. People will point to Zekvia question mark as that difficulty. Like, it's over there, Mike, it's over there. I've done it. It's okay. It's a fine boss, but it's a one and done thing. I see no real reason to go back and actively farm it or to do anything with it. It's just...
When you get the rewards, you had a reason to go back. But now that you only need it once, why would you go out there again? Like, maybe do it once a week for the Crestons or the crest or the Valor Stones, but even there, like, now that they nerf that, you don't have any reason to go there.
To one and done. I'm talking about some regular...
Because I don't know if you know this, but they nerf Sekbir twice. He just said it. Like, the first time is when he doesn't fill your vault, and the second time is when they nerf the amount of crests and the amount of Valor Stones that he gives, because he used to give Valor Stones every time you kill him, but now only once a week. So why all this effort to do a cool boss if you are not going to keep doing it? If you are going to disincentivize people of doing this shit, it doesn't make any sense.
Challenge. The Ringing Deep's weekly event, although it did have to be nerfed, which is odd to me because it's very simple, but it's also very similar to the Proving Grounds, which we know a lot of people couldn't do. I get it. It's supposed to be a nice weekly thing to jump into. I just don't want all my open world content to be brain dead easy, but making it hard is pointless. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, that's what I'm asking for. It's like, I want some challenge out here that's reasonably rewarding, that isn't involving something super difficult in terms of the mass player base, that I can work on myself, right? I would prefer the Ringing Deeps to have a more difficult step up that maybe is shorter, but it's harder to do, and then you're tempting people to do it in a more efficient way. Perhaps has a higher chance of dropping them out. Things along those lines that are just going to tempt people to try and get a bit better at the ideas of the game's mechanics, soaking things, interrupting things, which is what that idea is. It's an advancement on the Proving Grounds. I would really like to see that. I want to move on to the thing that I hate the most in the War Within, and I really think needs changing, and changing pretty damn quick.
Mythic
and
Plus.
It's going to be an interesting point to see in the comments here, because this falls into the weird category that I have dealt with for well over a decade of producing content in MMOs, is that if you get it, you think it's fine. And that means a lot of people really defend these systems because they understand it and therefore it's not that bad, right? And I have this across every MMO that I cover, is from a...
And that goes hand in hand with what we talked earlier about. It has always been like this. Like, people that overcome a bad system think that the system is fine because they overcame the bad system. Nah, brother. Just because you can overcome some difficulty doesn't mean, in a fucked up system, it doesn't mean that the system is not fucked up. That is a fallacy again. And that is happening right now in this Mythic Plus season.
Outside perspective, when I come in, and this is the feedback I give to the developers of those games, it's like, this system is really bad. Your current players are probably fine with it because they're used to it and therefore it makes sense to them. But for anybody looking from the outside or coming in on their day one, this thing is awful. And this,
Exactly.
in this case, it is the gearing system. The gearing system is horrendous in the War Within. Absolutely horrendous. And I want you to look at this through the eyes of the people.
And I was talking about Mythic Plus, but when I think about one big reason why Mythic Plus is sucking, it is because of the gear system. Yo, Escolapiero, my dude, how you doing, brother? Brother, I've been streaming for half an hour and I had the YouTube disabled. Like, I had it in private. I am an idiot. So I just realized, like, why is nobody talking from YouTube? And it was because it was in private. I just set it to public, brother. So when I think about why Mythic Plus sucks, it is because of one of the big reasons. It is because of the gearing systems. And now that he's saying it, when you think how all is this combobulated, like what you get from Devs, what you get from the Vault, what you get from Mythic Plus, the crest, the things, it is all out of whack, brother. And I don't know why go and change it when it was so perfect in Dragonflight Season 3. And in Season 4, it was not as good as Season 3, but it was good too. But they came for Season 1 and changed it for the worst, brother. Yes, you just got the notification. Yeah, exactly. I fucked up. I fucked up the thing that I had it in private. And I was like, brother, it can't be that nobody from YouTube is saying anything, but it was my fault.
People who sat there watching BlizzCon, and to have Chris Metzen come out and say it's time to come home, they may have not played the game since Shadowlands or BFA or perhaps earlier, and walk into this nightmare that is the gearing system. What makes this extra ironic for me, and we covered this in the past, is that secret meetings with developers where they gave conferences and things and images that were leaked showed how much they hated the Wrath of the Lich King badge system because it was producing too many badges. That was like 4 badges by the end of the expansion, and they considered that way too much. And now we're here with many levels and tiers of crests, multiple pathways of gear to upgrade that require combinations of Valor Stones for some reasons, and I don't think I need to go into too much detail about how frustrating the Valor Stone situation is. I get what it's supposed to do. It's trying to make sure that their world is active and alive because you have to go and do this bog.
The World Within has pretty insane gatekeeping more than Dragonflight. I completely agree. It is insane, brother. It is insane. Dragonflight was already gatekeeping, but it was doable and it was cool. But the World Within is insane. And you can argue that this thing is too convoluted, too complex, like veteran track, explorer track, champion track, hero track, mid track. Like, yeah, we already know the system, so it isn't that bad for us. But when you think from outside of the system, like for a new player, this is fucking insane, dude. This is, what are you doing, brother? I also agree that the Valor system has its flaws, so I am not saying go back to Valor because the Valor system was stupid. For example, when they uncapped Valor and people just farm twos to get a lot of Valor, like that is not fun either. But I don't know, Season 3 was awesome, Season 3 from Dragonfly, go back to that. It was already convoluted, but at least it was doable, and it felt smoothly progressing your character. But now in the World Within, it doesn't feel like that.
Damn basic content to get this stupid currency, but it's a limiting factor in upgrading your gear well beyond it being necessary because it's open world and silly content that rewards it. You're so far past that, and yet still it persists in being like, you still need it. And Blizzard needs to be a little careful with this because they're falling back into the Shadowlands trap via a different door. Let's not forget that by the time we got to Shadowlands, along with its myriad problems, is one of the issues people had is like, I just had relentless amounts of chores to do all the goddamn time. And it was the only thing to do. And I just kept having to go round and round and round these goddamn circles. I had to go and save the souls. I had to go and do this every day in order to keep my character up to date. They're doing it again via the Valor Stone system. They're like, well, yeah, well, you don't have to do any of the round, right? You don't have to do any of that. But you kind of still need this thing. And they're falling into the Azerite trap again. And they need to be very careful not to, like, overdo it because it's going to happen again where people are like, dude, it's just relentless. Like, I still need to do this. Let's rewind, though. Let's go.
And by the way, how stupid is the 2K cap on Valor Stones? Because that happened to me at the start of the expansion. You couldn't get crest because the season hadn't started, or after the season started, you were gated on the amount of crest you can get a week, something like that. So I couldn't upgrade anything, but at the same time I kept gaining Valor Stones, and I got to the cap of 2K, but I couldn't spend the Valor Stones on anything, but I kept getting Valor Stones, so the 2K cap just fucked me over in a lot of wasted Valor Stones. Why are you keeping the Valor Stones at 2K if I can't spend them on anything? That is one of the stupidest things I have ever seen in my life, dude. And it feels awful, brother. Yo, Ninja Stuart, my dude, how you doing, brother? Yeah, but I have been playing Kara Classic. It's a lot of fun. It isn't perfect there either, but the track I'm on feels like it makes sense. There's too many tracks in the world within. I haven't played Kara Classic, so I don't really know. But I know that right now in the world within, it doesn't feel like a fluid path, like a smooth path. Like, oh yes, I am doing this, and I go to this, and I go to this. It is like every step of the way you find a new obstacle, a new thing that is impeding you from progress, and it feels awful. I know that having things impeding you from progress uses to be something fun that you have to overcome, but in the world within, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, I don't know, a task that is I don't want to say complex or hard, because something big, complex or hard is not necessarily bad. But it is just annoying. I don't know. It is annoying to do. In the world within, it is annoying and you don't want to do it. And you waste a lot of time trying to do it. It makes it not fun. A lot of things happening. I am great, brother. I am great. I hope you are great too, bro. The stone cap is insane. It just makes your players avoid content so stores aren't wasted. Exactly. I feel like I don't want to do this, because if I do this, or if I claim this, for example, the rewards from some renown or whatever, I am going to waste these valor stones because I am at the cap. It is stupid.
Back to the crest system. What was wrong with valor points? Obtainable from many, many sources.
Well, I told you what was wrong with Valor, that when they uncap Valor, people went ahead and farmed 2 dungeons. And I know that some people are going to say, who cares, let people do that, but that is the optimal way to do it, and if you don't do it, you are an idiot, and if I want to do it, it is annoying to do. I don't want to farm a 2 for, like, I don't know, the whole fucking day, because people did it just to get the item, the drop, and then upgrade it with Valor points, right? That is one of the problems with Valor that they try to solve with crests, but I don't know if this solve is worse, right? That is the problem. I don't mind them experimenting with the gearing system, but it is obvious that this season is a fail and they are not addressing it. And they could address it mid-season. Why not address it mid-season? Why wait for a new season if you can address it mid-season?
What was wrong with that? In order to have a simple one-and-done currency that you can upgrade your items with, and that was great. People were fine with that. Now we have multiple crests that come from all different sources, and is now hard-locking people at certain gear levels because the accessibility to the next levels requires an enormous step up in ability of the player in order to achieve it. So, and you can achieve the lower tier extraordinarily easy. And now you're managing all these crests. You now have multiple channels to swap them, move them around. Once you've got this achievement, you can then trade certain amounts for certain amounts and then unpack them and move them. What are you doing?
Stupid,
and this doesn't even touch onto the crafting system, which I know I'm not the only one who is...
Oof, the crafting system, brother. It is too convoluted too. It is too complex, and they don't explain you anything. You have to figure it out on yourselves. And again, because we figure it out, we think, oh, it is fine, it doesn't matter. Nah, bro, it is too complex. I saw a clip of Sario trying to figure it out, like, with the help of the chat, and he said, like, he figures it out. Oh, Sario is awesome. But he also said, like, this is too complex for no fucking reason, bro. And yes, the crafting is cool in the sense of you can get cool gear from crafting. We have always wanted that. Like, professions before used to be meaningless and useless. We like that. But the part that we don't like is how complex it is to actually craft the piece, right? After it is crafted, it is awesome. Watching this stream while working, lol. Oh, that is awesome, brother. Thank you very much for choosing me as your second monitor phone.
Full done with this system, despite the fact that I have a guild that will make anything I put in there very easily. I just can't be bothered with it. It's just frustrating. It's annoying. There's so many pitfalls and noob traps. So many documents are having to be produced for the player base and videos. I would shout out Dratnos here, did a massive guide on, like, okay, you upgrade this one. There's flowcharts. Is it this level? Which track is it on? Okay, you want to spend it here. And people love being efficient in their MMOs. They do not like wasting currency. And there are so many pitfalls that you can fall into here. The crafting system, you got to send this off. You got to get an enchanted one. Then you got to get that sent back. Then you can go and get this crafted over here. It's too much. It's insane. It's not necessary. And it's making the whole thing a mess. a simple system of rewarding people who have bad luck, they do several raids, and they don't get anything, and then having some way of getting system like we had in the Sunwell is like, oh, you did all this? Okay, there's really good loot that's from here. Maybe you can get better in the raid, you know, you can get your spy masters from there, but we're not going to leave you high and dry because you've clearly been playing the game. You've clearly been doing stuff, so here's a simple reward to do that, and maybe something that can allow people to like, I've got this really good piece, it's normal, it's heroic, whatever. I'm not going to do Mythic, but I can upgrade it to be pretty damn close via a Valor Point system. Nice and simple. Doesn't need like 6 or 7 crest tiers and all this kind of garbage that's going on. Absolutely hate it. I think it's the biggest letdown for me. And I'm looking at through the eyes of somebody returning to this game from a time when bosses dropped items. Is it good for me? Is it not? Oh, it is. I equip it.
Is it any good?
That's a great question, Chris. That is a wonderful question. Is this trinket any good? The most often asked question in World of Warcraft. Is this trinket any fucking good? Right?
You won't know unless you see your character, which is another insane thing. Like, oh, is this an upgrade for me or not? Oh, brother, you have to sim your character. You have to simulate how good your character will do with this thing to know. Like, motherfucker, is this the game we are playing? Like, we have 50 add-ons, we have third-party website, we have Warcraft logs, we have Raider.io, we have raid bots. Motherfucker, we have guides and spreadsheets for the crest and the leveling track, and this talent gives me a 0.2%. Motherfucker. The new profession system is awful, man. I hate it so much, and it's also irrelevant after tier 1. Like, I don't hate it, and I like that professions are more relevant than they were before. Like, professions were totally irrelevant before. But at the same time, it has too many unnecessary complexities, moreover related to the crafting system. And you are correct that it gets, like in tier 3, nobody cares about this.
That was the end of it. Like, did it drop or did it not? It didn't. Okay, we run again. Right, I need that trinket from that dungeon. All right, we go. We just do it over and over again. I got it. Okay, but once I got it, thumbs up. I'm done. Right, I'm not looking to just do endless content to get crests to upgrade something else, and I'm not even interested in getting loot from this dungeon anymore. Blah, 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 blah. The whole circle. It's one of those systems that, again, if you're used to it, you're into it, it's fine. You get it. But just trust me, for a lot of players coming back are just looking at it going, okay, so I really do genuinely need to read quite a lot of documentation before I can engage with the system properly or in an efficient way, and that's just not that fun. It's really not. Maybe I'm boomer on this. I prefer to go, where does this come from? We go there. I want to do this Mythic Plus. That's where my thing comes from.
I kind of agree with this. I know that I've been criticizing the farming tools in Shadowlands, for example. But when I think back, for example, in Shadowlands, I was playing Warlock, not the Survival Hunter. I was playing a Demonology Warlock. And I remember that my Beast Trinket came from, how is that dungeon called? I don't remember. It was a dungeon in Maldraxxus, and it was like a crystal that you have to farm. I don't remember the name of the dungeon. I know that it was a crystal that you have to farm. It was the Beast Trinket for Warlocks and for a lot of classes. It was a great trinket. And I ran this dungeon a lot of times. The Theater of Pain. It was the Theater of Pain, I believe. And when you get the trinket, you got it. You just upgrade it with Valor Stone, with Valor points, with Valor coins, with Valor whatever. And it was done. It was awesome. But now, since you have multiple rewards tracks, maybe you start grinding, I don't know what, a 4, and you get it. But that is not the Beast Trinket, because the Beast Trinket is in the hero or the myth, where the myth track is only on the vault. So it's in the hero track. So the Beast Trinket actually comes from 7s or 8s or whatever, I don't know. So that is not really the Beast Trinket. You have to farm it at a specific number to really get the Beast Trinket, while before you had it in whatever number you wanted. For some people, that system was better.
And I'm done. That's about it. Let's talk about raiding. The raid was actually okay. Okay, yes, I was at the Race to World First, and my thoughts and, on the feelings on the Race to World First are very different than what's happening in the general player base. putting the race to world first to a side, I've talked about that. Let's talk about like normal and heroic. Normal was fine. I thought normal was okay. Heroic, though, up until a day ago when they finally implemented nerfs, was an absolute cluster of design. Very weird. All the way up until Ansurek. So the experience we had, again, this is anecdotal, but I know many other people had the same thing, is that you one-shot. By week 2 or week 3, you were one-shotting every single boss in that raid on Heroic with a reasonably prepared team, including the Silken Core up to Ansurek, and then being hard stuck on Ansurek Phase 1 for hours. This jump in the difficulty curve of Narubar Palace overall, from Mythic, Heroic, etc., is just all over the place. It's so weird how much it skyrockets at certain points for no real reason. And it...
Yes, the people say that, for example, like the last boss or the last 2 bosses in Heroic are basically mythic bosses in the thing that the first 2, 3, 4 bosses in Mythic are easier than the last bosses on Heroic. So it is all out of whack.
In a genuine way, multiple Mythic bosses are significantly easier with a reasonably competent group than a Heroic Ansurek is. We have seen this in the past, right? Blackhand was the same, Archimon was the same, but we should be past this sort of bizarre difficulty spike. Some of the decisions they made with Heroic Ansurek's design are so punishing to be just completely unnecessary, like cruel. And cruel was a word I used a lot during the race to world first. There's a lot of design choices are not just like unforgiving, they're cruel. They're like double down on how mean it is. So someone dying for P1, for example, is going to lead, and it won't anymore, to just you getting in the whole rage just exploding for massive damage. Absolutely stupid. What also is a big problem here, or what I return to, is the game's inability to handle too many players on the screen. I don't see any bigger argument when we have this choice that WoW 2 needs to come. Even if it looks visually identical, but it's built on a much more modern engine than this. 30 people, Heroic Ansurek, is a nightmare for anybody who's not playing the latest hardware, right? Yes, sure, the top guilds in the world are carrying people through that for their split runs, but every single one of them is usually running on a ridiculously high-end PC, and also being very choosy about who gets to go, who's likely very high geared, and there's a reasonable chance they have a decent bit of hardware behind them. Anybody playing a middle of the road PC, Heroic Ansurek 30-man is practically unplayable. We had many people crashing, running on the spot, couldn't do anything once it got to 30 people. To give you an example, we spent probably 4.5 hours of progress on Heroic Ansurek 30-man, which was rarely getting to phase 3. When we dropped into 20-man, we killed it in 5 pulls. And the game genuinely felt weird. Weird on the pull, that it actually played with reasonable amount of frames. Like, even 30 frames was crazy. On my PC, which is very powerful. Blizzard needs to address this. Like, the raiding difficulty curve was scuffed all over the place. They're making nerfs now in order to correct it, but this is the big...
Which by itself is also a complaint that a lot of players have. Like, they are releasing a raid that they know players won't complete, and they are nerfing it with time, when it should be like you release the raid in the state that it should be, and then Gear nerfs it. And now we have this weird buff that we get to continually nerf the raid week after week because we get the buff. It is like overly complex just for the sake of the World Tour raid first girl, the race to World First raid. And it is like, brother, why? It is so stupid, bro. It makes lives harder for the people that play normally just so, I don't know, 100 people enjoy it the first week. It is so stupid.
Biggest example I can see from this raid tier is that the game is just not capable anymore, and I genuinely kind of believe it might be time, if they can't fix this for the next 6 years, or do something about it, it might be worth actively limiting how many people can go to Heroic, because it's just not fun for so many people. And you can see this reflected in the Pug world, who do not do 30-man. And the reason is, in my opinion, is it's like there's just too much room for error that can snowball, even though that's being fixed via nerfs. Also, the game just doesn't play very well. It's not fun. It's not interesting. You're playing just a laggy, stupid mess all the time, and it's not fun at all. They need to fix it. And we just fucking
Good job.
There we go.
Oh
Boom.
my God.
That felt great.
Oh,
Played up my mind there. Holy shit.
Let's see Mike get all the loot.
I do want to mention Mythic Plus briefly in my thoughts here, although I will say this. Mythic Plus has been the least interesting thing I've engaged with in the launch of The War Within, for several reasons.
It's a worst fucking system, it is Mythic Plus. And again, not because of the gameplay itself. I have said this before and I will say it again. When I am inside the dungeon actually playing the game, I enjoy it. But there is a lot of stuff related to Mythic Plus that it sucks. The timers are too tight. The crest system is out of whack in terms of the difficulty of the dungeons with your gear. You are creating an ecosystem where gatekeeping is the norm because of the difficulty related to the gearing system. There are a lot of things out of whack here. The rewards with the numbers of the keys. It is, brother, this season is the worst season I have played from Mythic Plus. I've been playing since Shadowlands.
I'm kind of over it, personally. Running dungeons over and over again. I'm glad people really love Mythic Plus. But it's just such another endless road to go on. And considering that doesn't really interest me.
It isn't an endless goal. For example, in Season 3, it wasn't an endless goal. Like, if you want to push higher and higher keys, yes, it is an endless goal. But for me, it wasn't an endless goal. I will just get the gear that I can get, and then I am done. And in Mythic Plus, in Season 3 of Dragonflight, you could do it. And I maxed out like 2 or 3 characters, like the max gear that you could get, and I felt like, oh, this character is done. I said I had 3 characters that season, and I said a goal for myself for each character. I am going to get 2500 IO. I am going to get AOTC or killing the heroic boss, final boss with each character, and I am going to gear them to mid-track full gear to get all the sets, the appearances for the sets. And I did it on 3 characters, easy, fun, cool. Now, I am just playing 1 character and I am not getting shit.
At this point is farming crests, getting score, those kind of things don't really appeal to me as a gamer anymore. It's a system I've barely engaged with. I've done a few like 5s and 6 and then just left it there. I had no interest whatsoever to do any more of it, and so I haven't. What I can say is, obviously, from the forums and from the feedback, is it's not in a good place. They're trying to correct it. They're trying to make some nerfs. I think a lot of this is still the adjustment of the numbering system. People are still very much used to, oh, I need to do a 15 and things like that, despite the fact that's like a 25.
It is in part that. It is in part that. But it is not necessarily that, because Dragonflight Season 4 was already with the key squeeze, and it wasn't this bad. They made more changes after that fucked it all up.
At this point, and not really getting that message, and therefore they feel bad. It's kind of like when the numbers squish came in, is that they're struggling in a 5 and 6, where previously that was like the free one. This might be something that corrects itself over time, but part of the problem again is the crest system is requiring you to do certain higher level tiers, which are now really, really hard, far harder than they were previously to get those, and people are really struggling. Because the Mythic Pluses are obviously not balanced. The dungeons are never balanced in terms of which one's easier, which one's harder. The affix change is a good change, but it still leads to many issues within the sphere of complexity that some people just can't meet, but they still want to advance their character, and now they're ending up stuck in that endless loop of, I can't get into a dungeon. When I do get into a dungeon, it wipes and falls apart because the dungeon key is too hard. Round and round. A negative experience, not fun, something Delves was supposed to solve for some people and just haven't met the mark yet. So that'll be interesting. As we move on.
They've solved it at the start, but then you hit a wall in terms of progression, and you have to interact with Mythic Plus, because raiding is also gate-kept at once a week. It has always been like this. I don't give a fuck. So you have to interact with Mythic Plus if you want to keep progressing your character. You will say, oh, yes, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do anything in life. You don't have to work, but you have to if you want to survive, right? So yes, if you want to keep progressing your character, you have to do Mythic Plus.
Along the World Soul Saga, the future for me needs to address a few things that are still the antiquated things of the past. I think that's still their biggest issue. I think the gearing system definitely needs reevaluating, re-looking at, and just simplifying, cutting down, shredding down. I think a lot of people would appreciate that, in my opinion. I think we would definitely like to see delves be pushed a little more to make them more tempting to combat the idea of Mythic Plus. It doesn't need to be as rewarding. Give as many crests if they're still going to be around, but there should be good, ample reason beyond achievements to push higher into the delve system and have that as a
and make them fun, more fun to do also, by the way. or shorter. Make them that you only fight the last boss.
Challenge that people can go on if they want to. I would love to see proper delve guides of how you do this, how you get around it, how you deal with this, that people can work on individually to give that Mage Tower-esque experience. I don't think Zekbeer question mark is it, but there's an opportunity there. Glad it's evergreen, want to see it iterated on. And my final point really is this is a much more story-driven expansion than before, is to have that storytelling no longer be time-gated and messed around with. There you have it. Is it perfect? No. There's lots of ways they can modify it and change it, in my opinion, but I imagine some of you disagree with some of the things I've said, and I would love to hear that different point of view if you would be so kind as to leave it down below. So, as Season 2 approaches, I would love to see the changes I've thought about, but maybe that's not the direction for everybody else. Some simple tweaks, the time gating, the gearing system could be simplified. All these things I think would make a broader, more accessible game that we can all enjoy. Let me know what you think.
Yo, Oliver Morgan, my dude! Hope you have a blessed day.
Hope you
brother,
have a blessed day. Call me
bro.
Hand.
God bless you, bro. Thank you very much, my dude. You are fucking awesome. Oh! Thank you, brother. Thank you, my dude. Brother, this video was awesome. I agree with most of the things he said. Of course, you always disagree with little things. You won't ever agree 100% with anybody. But I think I agree with over 90% of the things he said, brother. I like this video. I think he's right. But the cool giveaway that I have here is give away the word. I don't know. You understand what I'm trying to say? Is that it is not hard to fix this for second season. So even for this season, I believe that they can do a lot, as he said, they can do a lot of stuff to fix this easily. With the time gating, with the crest system, with the gear system, with delves being more meaningful, with shorter delves. So it is not something so fucked up that you have to rework the entire thing. You can fix it with small changes. And that tells me that WoW is not in that bad of a spot when with small changes you can fix a lot of things, right? Because even with these things that we are complaining about, I am enjoying the game. The vast majority of people are enjoying the game, even if it has some bullshit in it, right? So that means that the base game is good. We just have to tweak some things to make it better. And yes, this has been the worst Mythic Plus season, but maybe they learn something from this and they make the necessary changes. What I am hoping is that they make them sooner rather than later. Don't wait for the second season. Make the changes now. You can fix this Mythic Plus season right now. Thank you, brother. Thank you. So yes, that was Preach's video. Thank you very much, Preach, for the video. I like this review. I think this was a comprehensive video that addressed a lot of the things that I myself have seen in the expansion. And it was cool, brother. It was cool.